Hi there! Welcome to a new physics lesson filled with adventure and discovery. Today our topic is Ohm's Law. We're going to be taking a look at how we can measure resistance, and we're going to be taking a look at what resistors might look like. So thank you for joining us, and let's begin. So last class we talked about what affects resistance. We looked at how if we have a short wire, if we have a large cross-sectional area, the wire is made out of copper, and if the temperature is low, then we'll get the least amount of resistance in the wire, which is what we want when we transfer current through a wire. However, if we wanted greater resistance, we would do just the opposite. And so I introduced to you the idea of resistance, but I'm officially bringing it up for this lesson because of what we call Ohm's Law. And so Ohm's Law kind of brings everything together that we've talked about. It brings voltage or potential difference, it brings in current, and it also brings in resistance. And so this is our Ohm's Law, which is V equals IR. V being the potential difference or in volts, I is the current in amps or amperes, and then R is the resistance in ohms. And so we're going to be using this equation a lot in this chapter as well as the next chapter. Really important equation, Ohm's Law. And so that brings us to what a resistor might look like. Resistors are actually pretty small. I don't know if you can even see it in the video. I'll bring it really close. So this is an example of a resistor. There's this little plastic part here that's in the middle of the two wires, and we could connect this to a circuit, and what it would do is it would resist current and regulate the current in our circuit. And so if you notice, there's these little colors on the resistor, and these colors represent how much resistance this resistor gives off. And so if you look at our chart here, and you take a look at the colors, hopefully you can see that there's a white band to begin with. So if that corresponds to our first band, which is 9, so 9 ohms. We have our second band is a brown band, which is 1, so 9 plus 1 is 10, and then our gray band is 8, so 9 plus 1 plus 8 would give us 18, and then the last band, I don't know if you can see it, it might be really hard on this video, but there's a brown band at the very end, and so that's our multiplier, and so we'd multiply 18, the sum of the three bands by our multiplier, which is 10, so 10 times 18 would give us 180 ohms. And so that's exactly what this resistor, how much resistance this resistor gives off, 180 ohms. And so we'll be working with this a little bit later when we talk about circuits, but I just wanted to introduce to you a resistor and in a basic sense how to figure out how much resistance this guy gives off. And so we can use these colors. And so lastly, we've been talking about current and voltage. We have a device that's able to measure those two things as well as a whole bunch of other things. It's called a multimeter. So I have one right here. And so the multimeter, I don't know if you can see, but there's a lot of different things we can measure using this, and it's also connected to two probes here. And so we use this device to calculate, we can measure voltage and we can also measure current in a circuit. And so notice if I wanted to measure voltage, I have to make sure my red cord or my red plug-in is in the, I don't know if you can see it as a V for voltage, okay, there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my knob to this setting right here, which is 20 volts. And so notice it turns on, and from then I can measure voltage in a wire or in a certain circuit. So that's how we can measure voltage in a multimeter. And then if I want to measure current in the wire, I'll unplug this, put it into my 10A on this side, on the left-hand side. And then I'll turn my dial to the opposite side to where it says 200 milliamps, okay, under the amps area. Okay, and so by doing this, I can actually measure current in a wire or a circuit. And so as for the placement, it's a little bit more tricky, but that's coming up in a future lesson. But I just wanted to introduce you to the multimeter and how the settings that we can use to measure voltage and current. And so thank you so much for joining us. That's it for today, and we'll see you next time.